Welcome on into the TACBox podcast. We are on episode 20.
21. And note the new earbuds because of the sound issues we had last time. My apologies, my bad. Speaker backlash. So we've got a new microphone and earbuds. And so hopefully this will be crystal clear.
As long as you don't touch the microphone, it'll be crystal clear. So when you touch the microphone, then it's yeah, don't do that.
Yeah. There you go.
So
Now I
it's a
want to
learning.
touch the microphone. Yeah.
Right. Just bop it a couple times. It's a learning process when you're in this. You got a technology nerd like me over here, and then you got Dale that's, more of the runner breeder, like technology
Not technology.
gifted.
Isn't
So
that?
we're working through it, and we heard
We
from multiple
appreciate you
people.
staying with us and letting us figure it out as we stumble along and do it, experience
nice part is,
my pain.
Yeah, the nice part is we're willing to put the time and the effort and the money into making sure that it's good quality. If you have been listening all along, hey, it should be sounding better. Everything should be getting better. It should be looking better, sounding better. We're making improvements. If you're new to the podcast, this is a comedic, informative podcast with Dale Martinson, the biggest Japanese chin breeder in the world, I would say, at this point.
According to
ChatGTP.
Yeah, exactly. They say that like, wow, we want an ego boost. Google's like, damn, I hear all that. Yeah, nice.
So Dale's Touche Japanese Chin and Castlemar Cavalier King Charles, right? And that's kind of where you're going now. And then I'm just a newbie in here that just fell in love with Japanese Chin and has been showing and breeding, or starting to breed now as well. So you kind of get
showing very successfully.
I have
nationally ranked in the NOHS. You've got group winning and placing dogs, so you've done pretty well, like better than anybody I knew for no longer than you have. So I mean, that's way impressive.
Yeah, so you got the newbie aspect of it here, who has seen some success, just enough success to keep me wanting to go to more shows and spending more money.
Right.
And then we have the wily veteran knowledge bank over here,
jaded and given up on life, just kind of like, oh, hell, So what are we going to talk about today?
So
with your pending litter coming up.
Yeah. So I got a litter coming up, and that tends to be how this podcast rolls. Is I get these ideas as a newbie into showing, into breeding. And it's just like, I'm sitting there thinking, and I'm like, well, crap, what do I do with this litter of puppies now, before they go home? How do I put my stamp of approval, my imprint, as Dale would say, onto this litter of puppies? Do they need to be listening to classic rock since the day that they're born? Do they need to be on a lead the day they're born? How can you, as the breeder, imprint the puppies and get them ready to go to their new home, whether it be a show home, whether it be something you're keeping and you want to develop them, or whether they're going to a pet home? So that's kind of the big umbrella of what we want to talk about today.
That's a great thing to kind of talk about as a breeder, because how we raise these puppies and how we go ahead and put that first stamp of contact on them, that sets the path. Are these puppies going to be little presidents, or are they going to be felons? Where are we going to go with that? And I mean, and this is not even just dogs. This is every species. Like when we raised Shetland ponies, we would go out there and get those brand new foals, and we'd like turn the clippers on and hold them up against them and rub their little bodies with the clippers so they wouldn't flip out and kill us when we tried to clip them 6 months later. Those things that you have a chance. You have what I call in dog raising a window of opportunity, where you can go ahead and you can set the narrative as to how this story is going to go. And you can really starts to make a difference as you generationally do this, as to how you raise your dogs, then how the puppies come, and then the next generation of puppies that you raise. It all kind of falls, it's in sync as to how you go along with it. And it varies breed to breed too. Some things you're going to really want to expose your breed to, and because when you know your breed strengths and your breed's weaknesses, you can pick the imprinting that's going to make the most of those.
Well, and they all have different. I mean, speaking of breeds, it's like over here we got Japanese Chin, who it's like if you can get them to leave and be cuddly and loving and chin spinny and all the fun things that, their breed is meant to do, to be the couch potato, the prize. But then over here you have GSPs, it's like you're going to be taking those GSP puppies and probably getting them out and active and, working on hunting type of material stuff. What is the purpose of this dog when it's full grown? What's its purpose? That's
Exactly.
gonna dictate the blueprint of your imprinting, right?
Exactly, because we're not gonna worry about being gun shy with our Japanese chin, whereas if we had retriever puppies or something we were gonna be taking out hunting, we would wanna be seeing who's got the strongest temperament, and we're gonna starting this out where we're all of our pre-training is going towards our eventual goal as to what we want. So some of the stuff we're going to talk about is just general for all puppies. And there are certain things you can do that make your puppies better. These are dogs that you're going to keep this general imprinting that you're going to start with that will stay with your dog for its whole life and on up through the time you place it. And it's I think probably the number one thing for everybody that's getting a new puppy, potty training. How are we going to potty train them? Because people go, oh my God, I'd like a puppy, but I'm such a bad trainer. My puppy potties all over my house. That's two things can be true at the same time. You probably are a bad trainer, but the dog didn't get the advantage of early imprint training because once that mama dog stops cleaning the puppies, and that's the cleaned up version of eat the poop. Once the mom stops cleaning the puppies, then that's when they start eating solid food. Once they start eating solid food, not just nursing off of her, she's going to stop cleaning them. So if those puppies have an option at that point of going to the bathroom either outside, in a litter box, or on a pad, then you have a moment in time where you can go, this is our plan here, folks. Where, now we're going to start, because like my Cavalier puppies, they start going outside when they're 5 to 6 weeks old to go potty. The chin, I put a litter box with pine pellets in, and they'll start using that just like they were little wolf cubs in the wild crawling out of the den, because Mother Nature says, don't potty in the den. It's nasty. We gotta sleep in there. So given that early imprint training as to how we're going to go ahead and teach them to go ahead and transition from nursing into solid food, which means they have to we're going to set the pace as to if you raise them up, because back in the 90s and all that, we thought, oh gosh, we don't want to take our puppies outside. We don't want this. We don't want that, because they're going to catch a cold. They're going to have this. They're going to have that. So we're like, go ahead and just put newspapers down. And basically we were teaching them to potty inside. And then these dogs were like crazy, stupid, hard to housebreak because they had pottied where they were standing, and that's hard to overcome. So now you're either going to get the litter box, you're going to get the outside. Those are my two favorite things, litter box and going outside. That's really where I try to have it going. I am not the biggest pad fan. Whole segment of people really love the pad. If you really love the pad and you think I'm wrong, write Tyson and tell him. But for me, the pad tends to make the dogs think of my sweatshirt or a towel on the floor, and they kind of like, oh, I think I'll go to the bathroom, and that looks like my pad. It's like where the litter box and going outside, it's a little better plan in place.
Yeah, and so I have firsthand experience with that because I've always padded my dogs. I thought, pads was, that's how they learn from the breeders. Generally, is with pads. That's just kind of what you think of, and it's easy to grab a stack of pads and take them to a dog show with you and things
Sure.
like that. And here's what I've experienced and why I'm switching from pads or working on switching from pads is I have carpet in my house, I have linoleum in my house, and like when you have, the kitchen's linoleum and then it goes to the back door and it goes over in front of the sink and the stove, and then your wife puts down rugs so when dishes are being done you're standing on a rug. Well, now that rug is a pad in the
Pad.
dog's opinion, because it's a piece of
Sure.
fabric on the ground, so they think it's a pad. So you get a
Like,
lot more
woohoo!
accidents,
A lot
when
more.
they're used to pads because everything that feels like fabric under their feet is a pad.
They kinda lower their standards as to what's gonna qualify as a pad, and it's like,
Yeah.
"Okay, yeah, that's" so, what how I do the litter box is and sometimes I'll even just take a Diet Coke half a case box, and I'll cut down the sides, or you can get little plastic, like, ferret boxes or bunny boxes, whatever, and they just have, like, a low side, and those little chin puppies will go, "Ooh, sandbox," and they'll climb up in there, and they'll root around there, and they'll potty in those pine pellets, and, you can take the Tootsie Rolls out and drop them in the commode, and after they've tinkled on those pellets a few times, they get kind of powdery, but you can go out and dump them on your plants, and it's kind of a great mulch. So you were kind of full on Martha Stewart here, where you can go ahead and repurpose that in a green sense, but it's really works out pretty well. Now, do they sometimes kick the pellets around, and can their pellets be a little bit everywhere sometimes? Yep, sure can. But they're also learning to potty on them. So then when they take that puppy home, they can have a litter box for it with a little higher sides, or they can go outside and they can put a handful of the pellets in the grass where they want them to potty. And those puppies will head to it like a homing pigeon. So you can kind of give them some direction as to how you want them to do. Or if they live somewhere where they don't have that, they can they can set the box out on their patio. There's options. There's things you can do with that is not as maybe confusing as using pads or newspaper or stuff like that. It's more of a natural surface for them to use. Now, like I said, Cavalier puppies, they're going out. They're out because that's a little too big a dog to be, for my mind. Like toy breeds that are a single digit in weight, those are more litter box paddable. Once you start going into the double digits in weight, it's kind of like you just have a buffalo poop on the pad. It's a lot of poo. And it's like, whoa, wow, landslide. We don't, can go ahead and kind of step around that. So housebreaking, super big thing. As a breeder, the number one thing, if they make make your new customer happy when they give you that 5-star review on Google and they go, man, I got this dog home, no accidents. The breeder had the schedule down, told me how to take it out to go to the bathroom and how, what time to do it. I've had no accidents. Best dog I've ever had for 5 stars. Just shitting outside makes the whole world better. You know, that's really makes people happy. And if you can do that as a breeder, they will overlook a lot of other things for that because that's a biggie. No, nobody wants to have the rug in front of the sink, be the pad. And so that's right off that. That's the number one imprint. The next thing we're going to be talking about is imprinting for temperament because we want these little dogs to be bulletproof. And we want them because the first little bit, they're blind, they're deaf, they're like, all kind of like quiet and in the little nursery area. Well, then, we want them to come on and spread their tiny wings and be able to take a lot. And so once we can start exposing them to noises, to sounds, other animals, like if you got a cat or an older dog that's going to be good with them, all of this stuff, more exposure is better exposure. And because odds are, as a show dog or a pet, they're going to be exposed to other animals. How they react to that is really important. That's a crucial part of imprinting. So what have you done as far as with your training on your dogs to expose them to stuff?
Well, really, they just get to go through my life at this point, and that's what I'm trying to come up with is as I'm getting ready to have my first litter, what is really important to me for these puppies because one of the things that I wish would have been done with my dogs that I have now as puppies is certain things like nail clippers. I pull out the nail
Huge.
clippers right now, and some of my dogs look like they are gonna die, and they scream, and they won't. And it's like
Uh-huh.
they'll stack and stand on the table perfect. I can brush them, I can do whatever because I do it all the time, and they're used to it. You pull out the nail clipper, and they're like, "What is this
Mhm.
medieval contraption? What are you doing with my paw?" So, one of the big things on my list would
Hugely
be
important.
paw
Hugely important.
stimulation and clipper stimulation, like getting them used to their paws being touched and clippers on them. Even if you're clipping, even if you're just clipping a little chunk off every couple of days or,
It's
anything
it
just to
just
get
has
them
to
used
be
to it.
the right, has to be the sensation of having the foot held and then trimming, because
Yeah.
all of that is nail trimming, toothbrushing, any kind of thing. If you have a breed that needs clipping, all of those things, the earlier you start them with that, the better they're going to be for the next 10 to 15 years to do. And they're going to be like the groomer's favorite dog. The people are going to like not mind doing them at home because they're so good to work on. All of that good. Because once you've had those dogs that you've got, and it's like, this is going to date me, but when you have that Mutual of Omaha Wild Kingdom type thing, and you've got Marlon Perkins from the Safety of the Blind going, well, Jim has got the nail clippers out, and they got some sort of badger that they're trying to like wrestle down. Not fun. Avoidable. Bad job of being raised. It was like someone that was phoning it in. And so now that window of early imprinting is gone. And now you're just going to have to train them into it. And it's harder. So
It's not
much
easy
harder.
to train, the saying it's hard to teach an old dog new tricks. It really is because,
Super hard.
you know, I have some dogs that I got at 10 weeks old and I got some dogs that I got after they were a year old, and it's like there's a dog that I have that I can flip her upside down. I can do whatever I want in the world with her. She does not care. She trusts me. But if I grab a
Hmm.
paw and the nail clipper, it's like zoom,
Game over.
gone.
Yeah.
She won't hold still. She'll cry. She'll scream. So I think that one is super important and something that I want my buyers. That's an imprint I want to have on my kennel and my puppies. Is you
Hmm.
know they're gonna let you clip their nails. I think another
They're going to
thing.
nails.
Yep,
Yep.
another thing that maybe is a general overview, but also breed specific would be ear cleaning.
Hmm.
In Japanese chin, we can get some
Yep.
yeasty ears or anything like that. Well, they don't like shit shoved in their ears. Nobody does,
They do.
So getting them used to that, getting used to ear flushing or nose ring, under the eyes and then the nose, the cleaning up here and keeping it dry. If you're into a short nose breed, that might be something as their puppies that you get them used to that wrinkle, that fold above their nose, that area
Hmm.
being touched and cleaned a lot at a young age. So it's really, I think it's just as much setting up the future owner for success as it is the puppy, right?
Absolutely. 100%. And the other thing is throwing them in a laundry basket and taking them for a ride. Getting them out there, like, even especially if the temperatures are on your side and it's like, you're just like, oh, I'm going to run down to the mailbox, throw the puppies in the laundry basket and belt them in the front seat, take them on along, get them used to a little car ride. Because people who get dogs that are good travelers, that's a great dog. That's a great dog. That's an awesome dog. Wherever I'm going, especially in the cooler months, try to take a puppy with me. Just like put them in there, take them along, and kind of subject them to the jostling of the car and all of that stuff. Otherwise, I mean, it's not fun to take a dog along that's going to drool and look like, and be like car sick and puking. No, not fun to bring.
Or a dog that screams the whole time because they're not used to being kenneled.
Terrible, terrible.
It's
Yeah.
it's awful when you have to drive to a show 5 hours away and the dog is screaming the whole time because 'cause they're not used to just, like, A, being in a
Uh-huh.
kennel or B, in a car that long.
Oh, yeah. See, this is the kind of imprinting to be able to be crated, to be able to be in a car or to be in the laundry, to be confined and to be able to self-comfort and come to an adaptability. These make these dogs great show dogs, great companion dogs, all things that the breeder has control of. And you should talk about your imprinting. I do on my website, I brag about it because it's like, hey, my dogs poop outside. Damn it. It's a really good thing. And if you don't think it's very important, get one that hasn't been imprinted. Let me know how that goes for you. All of these things are so important. Now, like with show dogs, and our little special needs breed, Chin, they do not love being on the table. It is not their favorite thing in the whole world. So if you pick them up while they're like too little to do, and just start plopping them around, getting them used to it, desensitizing them to the table. Then, it's like people go, "Oh, how come your puppies all stay on the table?" Because we got them on the table young. And when I get a dog from somebody else, if they haven't got them on the table, and they'll say, "Oh, I've had him on the table, Dale." Like, well, that's a lie because I can tell because the dog is like roadkill. Like we hit it 70 miles an hour and it's laying there on the highway. It's like it's not been on the table. Clearly, this is not true. So getting them on the table, very important. So and because they're even if they're not a show dog, they're going to be on grooming tables. There's things are going to be done. If they can cope with this, it's a great little skill set for them to have. The other thing that's kind of really cool, and some breeds are easier than others. We happen to pick a breed that's not particularly gifted on lead breaking, but lead breaking is really important. And the harder your breed is to lead break, the earlier you need to do it. So when you start them out and they're first because if you get them young enough, it's kind of like little kids. I'm going to tell a story of my childhood. Sorry, Mom. We had Rapid City. We had the swimming pool down by Sioux Park.
Yeah.
We got signed up for swimming lessons. I remember that. About 6 years old. Pretty much was certain that my parents had plans on drowning us and killing us. And I remember with absolute horror as we were dragged to the edge of the pool. Pretty much knew we're dying today. And it was traumatic. It was not fun, was not especially good at it. Never really took. And now you see people today, they have their babies in the swimming pool and they're like doing Michael Phelps laps, and it's like, it's just the difference of taking a 6-year-old who already has their ideas formed, like, yeah, this doesn't look good at all. And the baby who's just going to go along with it and they're going to excel with it. And they're going to let their natural abilities take hold. Whereas the older one, you get an older puppy that's not had a lead on, not been lead broke, you put it on there and they lock up, got the brakes, like, nope, not happening. You get that young puppy on there, get the lead on them. Sometimes I even slip it down around their shoulders and stuff. So it's like on their midsection and just kind of pick them up a little bit and they're like, and they'll go everywhere with you because they don't know any better. They don't know to hate it yet. Doing it before they know to hate it, that makes it much easier.
Or before they know, like, they can resist and, put their
Yeah.
feet down and, you're not gonna yank them around. But I think so how much of it do you feel like I mean, obviously, we've had an episode on DNA, and we know that DNA can play a role in a lot of things, when it comes to breeding. How much does DNA play a role in some of this, like, imprinting type stuff? And what I mean is a lot of it's exposure, but some of it's DNA. So think about this, like, if you are born to a farmer and you grow up every day in a tractor farming from the time you're a baby, chances are you're probably going to be a farmer or a rancher of some sort. If you grow up in the city, you're probably not going to go out to the farm at that point and become a farmer when you were born and raised in the city. So a lot of it is your environmental surroundings. So there's that to think about, right? There's a lot of environmental surroundings.
You can certainly optimize. You can optimize the stuff. It's like you can turn around and you can take natural abilities and tendencies and optimize them. Now, you're not going to make something that's not into something that is if it's not there. It's like I went hunting a lot when I was a kid. I liked doing it because my dad was doing it and I was going to do it. On my own accord, no, probably not going to do it. It's not, it wasn't, it was cold, it was hard, yeah, we can buy food, right? But it wasn't in my DNA to do. I know how. I've done it, was reasonably successful at it because I was optimized, but it still didn't instill a deep, it wasn't like, oh, this is something I just love to do and I'm going to do it for my whole life because it wasn't there. But that's where, as breeders, if we pick out the puppies that train the easiest, the puppies that have the most aptitude towards it, and we could go on it because it's like we got a little checklist where I want them to be perfectly marked. Check. I want them to have, be this and this and this to the standard. Check, check. I want them to have that, look at me, I'm a show dog, I'm a little show off, and that kind of thing. Yeah, those are way easier to work with. And when you start to keeping those back, you start getting more and more of them in your litter. Every time, it's like as you got generations going forward, like time you breed 5 or 6 generations of pick of litter females, your dogs are damn good because you've improved, keeping the best one back each time. And so that's a huge advantage, and also your customers are getting dogs they're getting those great temperaments, highly trainable. And, whether they're going to do whatever, just if they're going to be their pets or they're going to do therapy dog or service dog or performance or whatever they want to do, so it's something to breed for, but it's something that you can certainly optimize. And I think when you do that, you can also have an opinion as to how trainable they are. It's like, okay, well, I've did this and this or this one. That one lead broke in half the time this one did.
Yeah.
Okay. You know,
So what about
make
things
note.
like we'll go a little bit more deeper and let's talk about like what about things like you see those advertisements all over Facebook for these little PVC pipe jungle gyms that's got baby toys hanging from them that are marketed to people that have puppies and they can bat those toys around or you have I've seen some lectures on, stimulation where we pick our dogs up and we rub them and stimulate them physically and we hold them close to our heart so they can hear our heartbeat and that type of stuff. Like how important are those types of things? Or you'll see that they have that plate that's got like a ball on it. So when the dogs step on it, it like moves and they have to try to learn balance. Like, is a lot of that stuff necessary? Does it help? Or is it more of like, I'm a puppy, I'm going to chew on things so it gives me entertainment?
Well, okay. So everything that you're doing with your dog is a plus. Like, so everything that you're doing for them is a plus. So even if it have to be the hanging toys, and this red ball and the braided rope? No, it doesn't have to be that. Unless they want to sponsor us, and then they're the best thing that they've ever seen. But right
With
now,
that
no
said, we're taking
sponsorship.
sponsors, and
We are taking
we would
sponsors.
love to test out
Listen
your
up here.
product.
Maybe we could change our minds, But you go to the Dollar Tree, you go buy some toys, and it's like I take them. I have different toys, and I change my puppy's toys out. Just it's kind of like whenever you've got kids coming over, if you pick up the toys and you put half of them out and then turn around and next time pull those back, put the other half out. It's like, whoa, all new toys. I mean, so you can kind of fool them into a little bit of that stuff. But yeah, all of that stuff, changing up stuff like with the chin puppies, I want them to learn how to walk on different surfaces. Because how many times you've been to the show and you've walked on there and they've started to walk across the mats and they'll see a piece of tape and they'll go, no, look at that. We're not doing that.
Or the show is cheap and doesn't put mats down. I hate that.
There you go. All options. So if you at home have a piece of mat and put that in the playpen with the toys and they're like hanging out and playing on the mat, they see the mat like, hey, we got no problem with the mat. The mat's cool. And then, all right, then go ahead and take a couple pieces of duct tape and put them across the mat. And you're like, well, we walk on this all the time. We're not bothered by this at all. Is it all desensitization by imprint, which is going to make a bigger minded puppy. It's going to have a bigger thing. Yeah. It's like, because it's kind of like the more you do with them, the more you make out of them. And I think that's where that kind of separates out dogs that are like, because we always say, well, this is a great dog. Well, the great dog is not just quality. It's the dog. It's their temperament. It's their personality. It's how they react. I mean, great dogs are fun dogs that everybody wants to have because it has this cool temperament. And part of that is the breeder's job. We talk about breeding for health and testing. We talk about breeding for type and quality. And we talk about that. But breeding for temperament and then optimizing the temperament and the trainability is what makes a good breeder a great breeder, because you make people's favorite dogs. And I mean, to me, that's like getting the best in shows when I open up something and say, this is the best dog we've ever had. I mean, that's wow. Yeah. You just gave someone the best dog they ever had. That's way cool. And
Yeah.
your time that you invested into it. Makes all the difference.
So a lot of that, what you just said, a lot of it just sounds like rather than having a puppy sitting in an X pen with nothing in there, give them things to do. Like let's not let our puppies be bored. Let
Enrichment.
them use their imagination and their brains, their stimulation. Let them now, whether that's be creative, whether that you go out and you spend, $10, $15 on a Kong toy, or you give them an empty roll of paper towels, whatever you choose. But I think the important part probably is just so they're not bored. But I also think like a big aspect of all of this is what is the purpose of the dog. So as the breeder, you might have this dog from birth until 10 weeks, 12 weeks, 16 weeks, whatever it might be. Maybe some 8 weeks if you're in a bigger breed and you're getting rid of dogs at 8 weeks. But what is the purpose of this dog? And that might be different every for every dog in a litter. You might have a litter of, say, Japanese Chin, and it's like, well, this one looks like it's got really good show quality. So what do you need to be imprinting on that one? Well, obviously things like going around a ring, being on a lead, stacking on a table, getting groomed, certain aspects like that, standing correctly. And then you might have one that's like maybe mismarked because Japanese Chin's such a head and markings breed. Maybe it's mismarked and it's like, this isn't going to be a show puppy. So this is going to be put in a pet home. What do I need to focus on with this one? Well, stacking perfectly and really nice might not be on your priority list for that particular dog as the breeder
Sure.
because it's going to a pet home. So you want to be cuddly and loving and knows how to work on a lead
Still cut
and
his nails. Still
yeah,
gonna need his nails cut.
still gonna need his nails cut, still gonna need to know how to be brushed, but maybe it's more of a affectionate, cuddly play fetch type of dog that you're gonna work on instead of stacking and show ring type of stimulation, I guess I'd
And
say.
historically speaking, and I mean, and I think that this is probably something that's done more now than ever. Like as a parent, which I mean, you can speak to, people do more with their kids now. They make the kids think more. They make them, before it was, you're going to do that or we're going to knock you into the back seat. Mom reached around that flip flop. You know, uh, I mean, the more you do with your kids, the more you subject them to, the more they get out and see they they come out so worldly and smart. And so, whereas if you pull them in and they're just been out on the compound, that makes kind of shell shock. When you see dogs that are raised by people who have not socialized them, not imprinted them, and also kind of used to be a thing when you would get a dog from a breeder, it would be like it didn't know how to play with toys. It didn't have these manners. It didn't have this. It didn't have that. Maybe it was a show dog, but if it wasn't a show dog, it got really nothing. And they were almost what you would call like just salvage rescue type situations. And if you imprint and raise your dogs right, they're just awesome. But you can't do that with as many dogs because you have to break them out, cut them from the herd, have a little individual time with each one. That's what kind of like people say, how many dogs can you have? How many dogs can you raise? Well, that's up to you. I mean, how many can you raise? How many puppies can you lead break at one time? How many can you? Because and that's to your breed and to your situation and to your schedule and your support system, what you've got going on there, like, and how much your breed needs. Because some breeds are not peoply and they don't really like people. So you really got to shove the people aspect onto them really young. Otherwise, these dogs are not going to make. They're not going to be they're going to be fearful. They're going to be biters. They're going to be this. Not good. Not good. This is going to be not a good story for these dogs, and it's your fault because you're the breeder, and you had the opportunity to have a wonderful life. And if it comes out acting like it's been, you know, caught in the wilds of Africa and it's like a feral bush creature, then shame on you. You dropped the ball. Now you have a dog that someone's going to, if you can find that person, it's a bad story. It's good parenting, good imprinting, optimizing. It's a doable thing.
Yeah. And I mean the best case, maybe I shouldn't even say this, but I like to blur lines and get borderline canceled. But Like think about pit bulls, and the idea that they have, and the stigma that pit bulls have, they're these mean fighting dogs. No, they're not. They were trained to do that. You know, I've had pit bulls. I've been around a lot of pit bulls. They can be the nicest, most loving dogs, but the ones that you see out there, the big news stories are dog fighting, and then that comes up to it's generally a pit bull, and so the stigma
Or they ate
gets
somebody's
associated.
face.
Yeah, pit bulls, and it's just like, well, sure, do they
Well,
have the tendency to where they could be mean? Yeah, but they were trained that way generally, or raised in a rough scenario where that's how they were imprinted.
well, absolutely. So I am certain any breed of dog can be raised in to be a social, well-adjusted. Some are easier than others. You know, some are way easier than others. Some of them it's their natural instinct to be a body pillow. Some of them are not. But you take a breed like a pit. They are a protection dog. They can be like not as good with strangers. If that dog doesn't have early socialization, if that dog isn't cut from the herd, some breeds are communal breeds where you can have multiple together. Like I'm sure you have turned all your chin out in the yard together before.
Yeah.
And it's like watching a fish tank. They just kind of like doodle-doo-doo-doo-doo. Some are over here, some are over there. It's fine. It's nothing. You know, Cavaliers, same way. Communal breed. It's all peace and love. We're all going to sit in a circle and teach the world how to sing. It's easy. Some breeds are not communal breeds. And those breeds, and like your bulldogs and stuff like that, with a lot of training and some good supervision, they can kind of be together, but it's not really what they're about. And that's not really who they are. And they really do better. Probably it's easier for people to have one than to have multiple because they're going to have control of that situation. It's really like learning your breed a little bit and being honest about your situation as to what you do. Because if you can't just turn them all loose together. I remember a long, long time ago, we had somebody that had the folks at the Humane Society gone in, they rescued a bunch of chickens and they took them all out to some farm and they were going to turn them all loose together. Well, they didn't realize those were fighting chickens, you know, and so they took them all out. They turned them all loose together, and they had the world's biggest chicken fight derby going on there. I mean, they're horrified because they're killing each other all over. The chickens are just like ripping each other to shreds. Well, that's who they are, you know, and that's what they're about. And so their situation, I mean, they're not a communal thing. So it's like, yeah, sometimes you got the little communal goldfish together. Sometimes you got the betta that's in the bowl by itself because it's just really happier that way, you know. And that's kind of knowing your breed, knowing what you need to do with that breed, and going from there, to get the most out of it.
I think that was, yeah. I mean, so when you're talking imprinting, I think there's some basics that every breed can benefit from: combing, lead breaking, potty training, nail clipping, the general care of dog in general. They need groomed, they need their nails clipped, they need to know how to walk on a lead, they need to know where to go potty. Those normal
Travel.
types of things, and traveling. Then there's the another reason to like know your breed standard. What is the purpose of your dog and your
Hmm.
breed? And how can you, as the breeder or the person raising the dog, maybe you get it at 8 weeks old and you're the owner of the dog, how can you imprint at a young age of what that dog is intended to do? Well, you know your breed standard, like what was the purpose? What's the purpose of your breed? And
Uh,
how can you help be proactive and put it in situations that help what its purpose was? So I think there's a couple different ways to imprint with your generals of this is what we just need to do because it's a dog, and then this is what we need to do because this is helping promote what its purpose is, right?
Absolutely, 100%. Knowing the breed's purpose, knowing what it's going to be doing, knowing what you're going to need that dog to do for you. I mean, it's everything. It's like you have you have guardian livestock dogs, and they'll say, "Oh, well, we're gonna go. They're gonna put them out with the livestock and just leave them." Yeah, okay. those animals, if their situation changes, you might have to euthanize those animals because they're not going to now adjust because they have no social set. They have no skill set to go into any other kind of home. Like, I have my Pyrenees, Samson, which we all suffer through my Facebook with my daily challenges of Samson. He had a bath yesterday. It was traumatic again.
We didn't see pictures of that though, where I'm sad.
Yeah.
I love the
Yeah.
pictures where after you get done brushing them and it looks like a cotton boll, like cotton storm rolled through your property.
Everything, right? And so he's gotten to the point now where I can brush him and I can do his nails. I mean, and he's 100. He's old, right? I mean, I can, and I can still get it over on him and make him do it. But all of this stuff like that, he would be so hard to be someone's dog in town in a yard because I can't keep him in a yard. I got 50 acres. And sometimes I'm out there running and I'll see him tootling through the field. I'm like going, get your ass home. What are you doing out here? He's like, man, just checking on you. I mean, and he'll patrol. But that would be really difficult if you lived in town. And so if I didn't have that place for him, what does his life look like? How would he adapt to that? It would not be good. That would be really bad. That'd be really hard for that dog. So like he got shut into the backyard one time by accident. And I have a little white plastic picket fence there. He did the hey Kool-Aid thing and ran right through it. Pickets just went everywhere. I was like, oh no, no, I got shut in here. It's
Not
like
happening.
not happening, not happening. Because as a puppy, he was never confined. I mean, he learned how to be brushed and bathed and walk on a leash at 10 plus. Harder, way harder, And so I can tell you the thing about having these dogs have a life and to be able to maybe have that life change and be able to adapt to that, all really important with that first imprinting. It's not just a matter of feeding them. That's not enough to raise a good dog to just feed it. You're going to have to give it skill set. I think we have a higher criteria now as a breeder. We have a higher criteria to make that dog a family member, a pet, a working dog, a service dog, a performance dog, whatever it's going to be. We have to give it that skill set to start out with, and that's on us.
Well, and you want your buyers when they buy a puppy from you, A, to be happy, B, to tell other people and send referrals your way. Well, how do you do that? You put your fingerprint, your imprint that dog to where they know when anybody that buys a dog from this breeder is going to get this type of dog. They're going to do this, this, and this, and you're going to get this. They're going to go out and advertise and do work for you, and it's really just going to make your kennel stronger. That's imprinting.
I think feral is a word we want to avoid when people say, I got it, and it was basically feral. Not good.
Not something that you want associated with your breeding program. Let's not do that. So,
no.
All right. We're going to move on to a new segment of our show that we're going to do every week, and it's listener questions. So every week we're going to finish off the show with listener questions. And these are questions that you submit to us via Facebook, email, the TACBoxpodcast@gmail.com, or you can direct message
Do we
me.
have a gong or anything that we're going to use?
Not yet, but if we do get a sponsor, we can afford to get one, So
hey, all right, there you go, folks.
So things to keep in mind with this segment. We don't have to listener questions. Submit your questions. If they're too long, we'll make a show out of it. If they're quick questions that Dale can answer, that I can answer, great. So we have a couple to start off this week with. So, all right. One of the questions that we got over this last week was somebody is getting into dog showing and they're more on the agility aspect of it, but want to get into conformation. What they're struggling with on the conformation side is everything in their breed in their area is all professional handlers that are really collecting all the ribbons. And they want to know, how can they stand out when they're facing professional handlers that are in the top 5 of their breed without having to travel too terribly far? Tough question, because it's kind of one of those where it's like, well, you might just have to travel further and get away from those professional handlers that are ranked top 5. But what tips, tricks would you have in that scenario?
So All right, so that is tough because I mean, showing dogs is one of the only sports where you have paid professionals and owners, not amateur, all degrees of owners, all competing, and that is that's a unique aspect. The advantage to the owner handler is you can optimize your dog. You can really know what your dog needs. You can make the very, very, very most out of that dog. You can pick your shows and your judges to your dog. You can do everything. You should be able to be so in tune with your dog. That handler's there that's got a dozen dogs they're running up and going in there. They're at a disadvantage to a good owner handler who knows their dog, have their dog in the best condition. They can put all their grooming efforts into it. They can put all their training efforts into it. They had their friend videoing them at training class and then go, when I move them down on this side, if I slow down right here and I can do a turn here, you can totally choreograph and have your ring procedure down to that dog. You can show it to accentuate its qualities, hide its faults, and you can really pick and choose how to make the most out of the presentation of that dog. I think it's an advantage in some ways, to go in there and show it because you really should know your dog. And when I see someone going in there and like they're in a bred by class or they're an owner handler and their dog doesn't show well, I go, who are you going to blame? Who was in charge? I mean, because the owners should know that their dogs are in weight. The owners should know that their dogs, they should know when they need to feed them, when they need to have them pottied out. They should really go in there and optimize their 3 minutes of showing. They should have it down. And I really believe that that's an advantage in itself. The other thing is get in with a good breeder, get some really honest feedback on the quality of your dog. I mean, is your dog good enough? Because if your dog is good enough and you do the work, put the work into it, you will win. You will win. I know somebody that won a group 1 on a tricolor Japanese chin female. How? Well, he put the work into it. He had his dog looking right. He had his dog showing right. He had everything together and went in there with professional handlers, a toy group 1 that hasn't been, there's not a living tricolored chin female. She did that because he put the work in. That's the difference. Put the work in, invest into it, learn your breed, learn your dog, learn your craft, watch videos, and go in there and kick their butts. You can do it.
I would say, like, as a newer person, and this person is new, wanting to get into confirmation coming from obedience, rally, agilities, things like
Uh-huh.
that. Get over get past the stigma of professional handlers. I think you said it a lot. Is like you can have a relationship with your dog, and the relationship matters. When you see a professional handler in a ring, their dog does what they're supposed to do, when they're supposed to do it, how they're supposed to do it. But it's just that it stops right there. Their dog moves how they're supposed to move, generally when they're supposed to move, and stacks. Throw something a little extra in there. If you have a special relationship with your dog and you can go around at the end
Above.
after you're down and back, and then your dog can do a trick right before you stack or something. The judges see that, and that's the relationship
Absolutely.
aspect that you have with your dog. And I attribute a lot of my success that I have with my tri bitch to the relationship that we have. Like, we're buds outside of the ring, and
Uh-huh.
in the ring, she knows, like, at what point, because we've built this relationship together, she knows at what point we're going to take off and we're going to run. We're going to finish the go around in the groups by running and jumping. And then she's going to stand on her back legs and do a 360 and she's going to get a treat. Like, that's just we've just developed that together. And I
Yeah.
think that can help us stand out against handlers. But at the end of the day, if you're facing,
Teamwork.
right, teamwork, and handlers don't always have that. They don't have that
No, that
personal
you can't.
connection, you know,
It's
and
harder to have with all of your dogs, or maybe your specials that you show every weekend, but your class dogs, you don't have that special relationship that the owners do. The other thing that's a big plus for a new person, go online and watch your national specialties. Watch the people look at the dogs, but then look at the working out or the people that are showing them. Because when you see someone really showing a dog well, you can't help but notice that dog. And it's like, so watch and see what they're doing. Like, watch this thing and say, oh, that looks really good. And I'm going to have my friend video me. I'm going to watch it and with honest eyes say, wow, I shouldn't, not wearing that again. Don't, don't do this, do that, optimize your performance. You got 3 minutes, bring your A game. And that's how you're going to win, is by bringing your A game and knowing what that A game is.
And having a little bit of realism. If you have the top 3 dogs of your breed ranked wise in your area, you got to have a good dog. You're not going to go beat them with just any old dog. So you really got
Are
to
we
know what
talking
you
about
have.
showing for championship or grand championship or national ranking? And there also is the NOHS, where
That's
you
part
can
of it
show
too, right?
you can show for national ranking NOHS, which is very cool. So yeah, you have showing for champion, where I mean class dogs. I think class dogs owners are hard. You get a good owner doing their job, they're tough to beat in the classes. They are tough to beat because they have that relationship. But then once you get into the breed, the handlers are going to have relationships with these dogs that they're showing every weekend. And so that's where some skill and experience might be a little harder. You're going to have to try a little harder, but that's the next level. So
And find where
set
you
your
can have
sights
success, right? Find where you can have success. If you got 4 handlers and you're the only owner handler in there,
for
hey,
best
really
of breed.
set your eyes on owner handler, like set
Example,
your
there you
eyes
go.
on like, hey, I can go and kick everybody's butt in owner handler. And when that confidence builds, if you're new, you got to get that confidence built up. You're not going to walk in the first day and win breed. I mean, maybe, but a lot of
Maybe.
times it's a confidence factor where it's like, I can go in and do this. You have the best dog no matter what. At the end of the day, no matter what you win, that dog is going home with you. That's the best dog that you have. It's going to happen. Have confidence and you'll be able
And
to get it.
look at, like I said, be honest about your competition. Like say, I'm a runner. And so when I go, right, do I like it when I go ahead and finish before someone that's 30? Like, yeah, yeah. But do I anticipate beating the 30-year-olds? No. I want to compete. I'm competing against the other 60-year-olds. You know, I mean, that's kind of, set your sights in there. If you're showing a champion and you've got nationally ranked dogs there, okay, well, show for NOHS, show it in your division. I mean, that's okay. Nothing wrong with that. Compete, keep getting better, build your skill.
Yep, and it's ebbs and flows. It's all up and down. Those dogs aren't gonna be around forever. Those people aren't gonna be around forever.
And
That's
you're
how it
getting
goes.
better.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right. I think that'll wrap that question up. On to the next question. And this question has to do with kennel cough and vaccination for kennel cough. Looking through, so this person asked, they said, looking at kennel vaccinating for kennel cough, I see that there's nasal vaccine, under the skin vaccine, oral vaccine. How do I know which one to use, which was best, and how do I determine which one I want?
Okay. So there's different types of, you need to do a little research online to see what's best for your breed. I think I have used both. So like almost all the combination shots have a cough component as well. But mostly what we're doing for boostering, especially when we're going into the summer months and we're all cramming in these air conditioned buildings and dogs are going in and out of air and we're kind of like high exposure. It probably doesn't hurt to go ahead and either do an oral or intranasal booster every 6 months, like do an extra one through the summer months to kind of keep you through, and especially your dogs that you're showing. If I'll go ahead, I'm like, if I've got something I'm going to show, I'll booster it. I want them to be high titer. I do with like my weaning puppies. I go ahead at 21 days. I do a drop of the intranasal in their nose because by the time they're to the point where getting their shots, their titers from their mom and their colostrum milk's going to start to fall. But when you're traveling and taking your dogs out, or like if you're going to board your dog or leave your dog or send your dog to a trainer like that, I think that's good policy just to go ahead and have that little booster, either like I say, oral or intranasal. It's a cheap insurance and it'll keep your dog protected. Optimize your protection of your dog through the high exposure months, especially.
So why one over the other? Like why oral over nasal? Or I know there's injectable under the skin ones or in the muscle ones too.
Yeah,
Like, so what's the
I
difference
mean,
between all those? I think that's what they're
well,
asking is like, why would I
yeah,
choose
and what one
nasal?
over the so some people like I think as though breeds that have a harder time taking the intranasal, like say Japanese chin, they're not loving it. They're better. You can do the oral a little easier on them. Get that back in their buccal groove there, and it's easy for them. That's a good thing. You're giving a breed with a longer face. Like a GSB or something like that. They easy to hit them with that intranasal, and it's fast absorbing. You get really quick absorption. A shot takes a longer time to accumulate. So like intranasal in there, stuff like that. Why do you think they're sniffing cocaine up their nose? Because it's fast absorption. It's right into the membrane. So you're like, cool. So that's the same concept. It's quick results, fast results on the intranasal. But if your breed is a little harder to do that with, oral is really good too. I don't injectable is fine. Have a little longer lead out time. So it's not quite as fast of getting your reaction to it.
When I was researching for this question, I found it really hard to find injectable. Like it wasn't nearly as ready as available. It seemed like it was nasal or oral.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, because of it's airborne. And people are wanting fast results. And so anything that you swallow or inhale that's your fastest, protection on that.
Is there
And,
any danger like with nasal to like drowning or anything like that because you're injecting shit up their nose?
so since you've imprinted and handled your dog and it's not like a feral barn cat, it doesn't have to be super hard to do the intranasal, but breeds that are harder to do the intranasal with, that's where you could do the oral with. And I mean, because that's easier. So you can kind of pick and choose, see what's easiest for you to do. Because coverage is coverage. Any coverage is good coverage, and when it comes to keeping something like that off. But definitely when you're going out to shows, because it sucks bad if your dog entered a bunch of shows and your first weekend out and your dog comes back and it's coughing its guts out. Because if it gets set in, gosh, it can be months and months to shake it off, and they can cough for a long time,
Yeah, it sounds like
especially the
death.
breeders. Oh, it's horrible. It's bad. It's a pain in the butt, but they don't die from it usually. I mean, very rare. And it's kind of one of those things. It's like, you know, the boostering is important, I think, and people every summertime, and people go, "Oh my God, it's like happens every year, people." It's kind of like snow. If you live somewhere where it snows, buy a shovel. You're gonna need it if you're going to shows, especially this summertime. You know, you're going to have that round of and it's kind of like having a boarding kennel. You go and they go, when was your last kennel cough booster? Because I don't want to bring your dog home and have it go home coughing. That kind of thing. Let's up our odds.
So speaking of summer and getting a booster, the next question is how do you handle environmental allergies? So maybe seasonal allergies in dogs.
So a lot of that has to do with degrees of autoimmune, things like that. You can Benadryl is what I've used on my dogs. I've had very good success with that. Children's Benadryl. Acclimation Benadryl kind of lower your exposure if it's got try not to put them out into the field of ragweed if you can avoid it if they have a problem with that. But supportive care, I'm sure there's probably some dietary boosters of immune boosters. I don't know if it works or not, but for sure, you can definitely treat stuff with a little bit of Benadryl and that kind of stuff, just kind of get them past it. I've had some dogs that I've had to nebulize a little bit, I mean, that, run a nebulizer. Because again, inhale anything like that is a faster absorption. A little albuterol, some Genison, put the nebulizer in their crate, throw a towel over it, give them a little breathing treatment. Be amazed how they can help them shake it off.
Yeah, I think that's a hard question because define environmental allergies, it's like, it's one of those things where it's
The
like, if you know what it is, then you just solve the problem, right? Like, just get rid whatever it is. But and sometimes it's not even environmental allergies. So like I had a dog just recently really start itching, and the first thing that pops into mind is like, oh, it's summer, environmental allergies, and what I really think happened is it's just humid, so we got a little bit of yeast going on in our ear or something. So you kind of look in there and you can smell in there, and you figure it out, and it's like you start treating it with some ear flush and stuff like that, and taking care of it, and then this itching stops. I don't know that I
it's
think that
magic.
could have get chalked up to environmental allergies, or could have been
Right,
because
because
it's
that's
been super humid and a couple weeks of humidity and not getting ears cleaned and something, you get a bath, you don't dry it, or, like things like that can happen. So really, I think as part of being,
I think that's a
I don't know.
very loose diagnosis,
Yeah.
and it could be a blanket for a lot of different things. And so I mean, obviously, lowering exposure, immune building, all of those are things that you can do, And then allergies is basically treating the symptoms, I mean, keeping them, treating the symptoms and, moving on from it. I think that if you have a healthy, normal dog, that's probably not going to be a huge stumbling block for that dog.
Yeah. All right. That'll wrap up this segment of listener questions. We had 3 questions today that we got answered. So, again, if you have questions, make sure you get them submitted to us via email or on our Facebook, and we'll make sure that we get them thrown into the episode. That should wrap us up for this episode of the TACBox podcast, talking about imprinting our puppies and how we prepare them for their future homes, as well as answering listener questions. Thank you guys all for being a part of the TACBox podcast. We are growing and we're super excited to have you guys along the way. And thank you for supporting us. Don't forget, you need to subscribe to our channel and to all of our podcast network areas. If you leave us reviews on those, wherever you
We
listen to
love
us,
it.
it really helps. And we like to see
Yeah.
what you guys think. You know, Gonna be honest, love when you message us and say, I don't ever miss your podcast. It's awesome. But that doesn't help anything. So if you could go to the network where you listen to it and actually leave a real, like a review on that app or that site, that really helps us to spread to other people. We love hearing your feedback. We absolutely love it. So
Absolutely.
don't stop sending it. But if you could leave reviews, that really helps too. And share it out. We really, really appreciate it. So thanks for listening to this episode. We will be back next week with another episode. Until next time, we'll talk to you guys soon. Bye bye now.
Bye, everybody.